All right, so now we are thrilled to welcome back onto the podcast recurring guest from last season, Ryan Stevens from WinTheRace.info. Ryan, you've been making the rounds. Saw you on the NASCAR betting preview show. On with the Lane Coin boys. I appreciate you making the time with me tonight, man. It should be a good one tonight.
No, thanks, man, for having me. I really appreciate it. You're obviously one of my first ones I reached out to, saying, "Hey, if you're having guests on this year, love to come back." So, thank you for having me on here.
Oh, 100%. And you have been busy. Always like talking to people about what they have been up to in the off season. I know we're getting a little further into the season now to continue to talk about the off season, but you were busy, and you had mentioned it last year when you were on and we talked. But you've got a new site out there, and WinTheRace.info. It's taken off. I've heard you kind of give the spiel a couple times, but if you wouldn't mind, talk to me about the process of wanting to do this and how you got it going and how it's been going so far.
Yeah, man. It's been fun. It's something that I've wanted to do for a few years, and it really just started back when I first started playing NASCAR DFS. And just kind of geeking out on the stats. I just wanted like a one-stop shop. I could just log in and everything that you could possibly imagine would be there. So, I'd bounce around a couple sites over the last few years, and then it's just like, you know what? I'm just going to build one the way that I know I would want to see it. And I think people will gravitate towards that. And it's just the ease of it. The convenience is the big thing. So you can log in. All of the loop data from all three series, Cup, Xfinity, and Truck, is in there from the last race, which includes everything you could imagine: closers, fast, late in a run, early in a run, average, green flag speed, average running position, everything you could imagine, quality passes, all that. So that's all in there. That's all free. What I do is my true performance ranks, and that's kind of like the big part of the site. That and my projections for DraftKings. True performance ranks takes what I think is the most important things that a race will spit out, and then kind of weighs it out and gives it a rank for each driver. So, like if someone wrecks out early or late or things like that, it's like kind of taking incidents out of it, and just giving the race more context, if that makes sense. So, you kind of have a true value of where these drivers would have been running had everything been clean. And I think that's very important. And as the season goes on and we have more races in there, it'll become more distinct. What I did was load 2022 in there as well and broke it apart between intermediate, short tracks, super speedways, road courses. So you can see how these cars ran last year too. And what's very important, and I did this for Xfinity and Truck, is I broke it out by car as well or by truck as well, because some of these guys bounce around quite a bit. And so it's been very successful so far this year. And the good news is we've been this successful already, and it only gets sharper as more data goes in there. So it should be great.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. I mean, it's only going to grow and get stronger. And I signed up this week because I wanted to. I've been meaning to do that since you were coming on. It was a good reminder for me. And the true performance rankings are like phenomenal to look at. It's a beautiful spreadsheet of information. One thing you mentioned how you broke it up into the different track types, which is so useful for people, like saves so much time.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like how you have your true performance rank and then like their actual number as well. Like that's a cool thing to be able to see. Like this is how they actually finish top 3, top 5, top 10 exactly, compared like in the same line, same row as your true performance rank. Like I think that's pretty cool because you're able to
That was
see
me,
who's
yeah, actually
outperforming.
listening to Twitter last year, and a lot of people were asking, like, you know, where have these people actually finished? Because an average finish can be dragged down. You kind of want to see their ceiling, especially. I did that for bettors, really. So, like a guy who comes to mind, like an intermediates, I guess last year would be like a Ricky Stenhouse, where he does have a ceiling for a top 10. So if you get a great number on it, maybe you take a swing at that on a track, you think he can do it. But his average finish, I mean, in other races, he either wrecks out or, it's just like a total tank fest. So if you just look at his average finish, it's not going to look that good. But if you start looking at that where he did finish in the top 10, or even top 20s, when we're playing DFS, a lot of these guys that are in like the $5,000 to $6,000 range, you're just going to punt down there. You want the guys who can survive and finish in the top 20, then they qualify poorly, they're going to get that good place differential for you. So even though their true performance might not be the top 20, you can see who's like riding around, surviving the attrition, and can finish top 20 every now and then and get you that upside you're looking for. So did it for betting and for DFS.
And you kind of started, if I remember from our conversation last time you were on, like DFS is your bread and butter, right? Like that's what you originally kind of started, like falling in love with kind of deal.
Yeah, DFS has been legal here for much longer. So I've been able to play that and kind of hone in on that. Betting I've only been doing for, like last year really was my first full betting year. That was the year, and we had quite a few books, but the main thing is there were more offerings last year, which did make it a little easier as well. Odds came out sooner. There were more of them. They were a little better, as far as value wise. This year's been a little tougher, but I'm working on it. One thing that I'm realizing this year, my second year doing it, Cup I have a really good grasp on. Like all my bets this year have either won or come in second for outrights, and then, but for Xfinity and trucks, it's a little more volatile, I'd say. Like, Kyle Busch comes back to trucks, but typically, some other shit can go down. But I like props more. I got to start betting more props for Xfinity and trucks, and we can, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, at some point tonight if we're going to talk the Xfinity race. But I don't know. Like the outright numbers are a little more slim there too, so it's harder to make more money doing it. Where like as Cup, you can get a lot of 12-1 winners, things like that, or more. There, it's always like, someone's winning, they're like 6 or 7-1 most of the time. But if you take advantage of the head-to-heads and stuff like that, I think can be a good moneymaker.
You're preaching to the choir. I mean, that's really how I've had a lot of success. I'm coming off a really good head-to-head weekend from all three series. I don't know the math, but it was like definitely the highest, I think one of the highest head-to-head win percentages I've had in a long time. And nice. I think you're dead on. Like it's right now, this part of the season, it's definitely much easier to just kind of focus in on these head-to-heads as opposed to trying to, hit these winners for whatever value those lower series, like you said, they're smaller numbers. So
yeah,
it would behoove you to really just kind of focus on some of these props and go more all in. One of the things that I'm excited for is you had mentioned your DraftKings projections and your DFS section here of the website, because I am not a good DFS player. And so if you can turn me into a guy who's been who can win some money on DFS, and you could do it for anyone. So I'm really looking forward to that part of your website. And
yeah, the way that I want to write, I write an article called Racing Awareness, and I do it every Saturday, after practice and qualifying, and then typically when the wife and kids go to bed. So they come out, them and the DraftKings projections come out real late Saturday night. But what I try to do, like always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, if my dad, who knows nothing about this, were to log in, like, would he be able to read my article and create a successful lineup or something that had, potential to do well for him? I think I am doing that. So that's where I still ask for feedback in Discord and things like that, and ask people, how could we make this better, easier to understand, anything like that. I'm always willing to do whatever I can, because I want the average person who's busy with a job and a family and obligations and taking the kids to soccer and whatever else is going on. I want you to be able to, if you couldn't look at anything all week, I want you to be able to have your lineups reserved early in the week, and you can log in Sunday at 2:00, an hour before the race, and have everything you need to just be able to create and go, and trust that the work has been put in. It's not just some, bullshit. And I think when they read it, they know, but everything's done for you. Hopefully, you kind of know how you want to create your lineup, and then drivers that have a better shot to succeed for you.
That's a perfect mentality to have. Honestly, like I'm definitely going to benefit from that, from the DFS angle, and you're only going to grow. So really happy to see you off to a good start with Win the Race, and really hoping to see it grow exponentially this season. Now, you also had a different endeavor. You've got another podcast out there, or you've got a podcast, the Big Guys Pod, right?
Yeah, Big Guys Pod with Big Tone.
Big Tone. So how's that going? You guys?
It's going good.
been cooking.
Everyone knows him as Big Tone here because that's how he announces himself every single time, every tweet, anytime he's talking. It's going good. Tone went like a little semi-viral, I guess, a couple months ago or whatever. He's trying to get hired by Barstool. It's just it was his dream. It probably isn't going to happen, but we started this podcast because we think we have one. I think we're pretty successful bettors. I know I've known him for a long time, and I know he sends me some things, and I know he's doing well, and I post mine pretty publicly, so a lot of people know that I'm doing okay with what I'm doing. So we just decided to team up. We hit it off really well as friends back in the day, so we kind of have a good rapport, some fun stories to tell. We talk about what's going on in the world, so I love that too. I just think it's a fun podcast for everybody. I didn't want it to just be like one specific thing. Neither did he. Something that everyone can tune into, have fun. His mom listens to it. She'll like text us and say, "Hey guys, great show." It's just fun for everybody, and that was the goal. So if anyone hasn't listened, it's called the Big Guys Podcast. It's on Spotify, iTunes, everything, but check it out. It's a fun listen.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool to see you guys using that as it's A, creative outlet, and B, a way to interact with people too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we do. We do the fattest thing we've done this week, and we're starting to get like people will randomly submit what they've done. Like we got people spilling, chicken nugget sauce all over their pants, and we got like all these pictures and stories coming in. So it's been a lot of fun, and the fact that it's interactive makes it even more fun.
Yeah, that is definitely that has potential by itself to be a viral segment, as you progress.
Yeah, it's good. We're trying to get better too. We're going to try to introduce like the skinniest thing we've done this week, just so we're not, totally fat, but we'll see what happens.
So 2023 so far, the racing's been pretty good, in my opinion. How are you doing as far as like DFS results and betting results? You kind of touched on that a second ago, but how's it going for you so far?
2023 is going well. DFS wise, especially, I had one huge night for Auto Club. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was Auto Club last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, when it was rained out and they raced on Sunday night. I had a big Xfinity night. I had a JHN lineup in DraftKings that came in second in the big contest, so that was a good 5-figure win. Wow. And then for betting, we're up pretty good in Cup, almost 10 units. And that includes 2, second place Logano at Daytona, which sucked. And then obviously Larson last week, which was a brutal death with 5 laps to go. I'm still angry about that one. El Morales, we'll get to him later. But I thought he was dead to me until
I saw the stats this week, because he's somebody that I have written down to talk to you about. But
yeah.
I mean, that caution, that was brutal. And then to see him basically he was fine and went out and finished the race, I think, on the lead lap. Like, how the hell does that happen? You basically flipped the whole race on its head, and then he's just cruising along. It was very I was not impacted as bad as that with the result there, but that's quite brutal.
Yeah, it was fine. And Xfinity, I'm down probably 10 units in Xfinity. I can't get a winner there either. It's just second place is not like had Allgaier. That one stung. But that's where I'm getting at. Like, I think, so what I do with Cup, which kind of saves me for when I do get those second places, is I do the props. Haven't done that for Xfinity. I gotta get on the prop game. So that's what I'll be doing there, trying to focus on that. And trucks, I haven't really bet this year. I think I put half a unit on Hocevar, which was incredibly close to win a group on Caesars for plus 420, and he finished just behind Creed. So he lost that one. But I was only in for half a unit. It was plus 420. So nothing too bad there. But overall, great. What I love most is getting these messages in Discord. Like I was saying, I got quite a few. Like, look at this ROI. They're putting it in Pickett and they're putting it in Roto Tracker and things like that. And everyone's ROI is up. And that's what I like to see. So if we just stick to the process, we'll be good.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned trucks and Xfinity. Like, I'm excited because, more and more people, you called them on another show we were on, you called like people competitors, the other sites that are out there. But I actually think that your Win the Race site integrates really well with some of these other, iFantasy Racing and Fantasy Racing Cheat Sheet. Like it really gels with them
Yeah.
very well, because you're not really stepping on each other's toes much at all with the information that you bring to the table. And I'm pumped that you are offering like a trucks. I'm huge on trucks. I love watching the trucks. So the
Yeah.
fact you've got a whole truck section, I'm excited to see that grow this year. And the next race is Atlanta, and then I think we got a road course. But once we get into more like the nitty gritty with the trucks schedule, I'm excited to see that stuff grow, because I think we will be able to really make some money on trucks mid-season and towards the end. So
Oh yeah, right now too. If you
exciting.
see, I do a ranking system before practice and qualifying too, and those to start the year, because I'm using past true performance, they've been incredibly accurate. So yeah, if you're on, like, even for trucks this, or not this week, but
Atlanta.
uh, yeah, for Atlanta, when you're looking, when I do my pre-practice qualifying ranks, that's, you can check out the TPR from last year, but the ranks, well, it has it all baked in there. So the ranks are very important each week before practice and qualifying, especially looking for value and bets and things like that.
Fantastic. I'm excited. One thing we can call out, I can see if I can pull it up here. You are part of the one and done pool that we are putting together with tool hangers. So let me see here if I can get it going. But the tool hangers one and done pool, how have you been doing so far with that? Anything bad or good? Or are you kind of just like treading water at this point, or are you up there?
I'm one of the guys, just kind of like, I'm not picking my favorites to win so far. Like, I picked LaJoy at Daytona, trying to burn that pick. I picked Bowman, who got me 39 at Auto Club, which was nice. I guess I did think he could win there, but he's not, like, I wouldn't call him like one of the main favorites I wanted to save till the end. And then I picked Daniel Suarez this last week again, just because he's not really anyone I'm dying to pick anywhere else, and thought he could, flirt with a top 10. So I haven't picked, like,
Yeah.
Larson's and things like that. Like, I know some people have picked Kyle Busch at Auto Club. That's a great pick, and maybe I shouldn't have saved him. That's what's fun about this, is you don't know what the right strategy is. So I love seeing
I know.
everyone differ with what they're doing.
It is going to be fun to watch. I mean, 3 races in, only one person has selected the winner, and it's Ian from the Flag Hunting Pod. This is the season standings thus far. I am in almost the basement here, along with one of the guys from Speedway, Steve, and Amarola. If we want to keep hammering on him, he screwed me at Auto Club because he got caught in that accordion wreck.
Yeah.
Got me 2 points on the day, so got some recovery to do. But I like it because everyone, for the most part, right now, early in the season, we're all kind of like in the same boat. But you're definitely in a good spot. You're setting yourself up here as we get going. And I think I have a similar mindset to you, like not choosing guys yet. I want to choose some of these throwaway cats that we can, get them out of the way and let the big dogs kind of gather data so we can really, pick them at the right time. So
Yeah, that's what I think. As we get this true performance stacking up here, we'll be able to make some passes on these guys.
that's right. So it looks like it's Ian and Seth from In Between Media and Phil from Speedway Steve. They're up there in the top 3 of our toolhangers.com one and done pool. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how that pans out, and I appreciate you being a part of that this year. We'll see how it goes. So big ticket conversation this week, as far as Phoenix, as we look ahead, the rules package. All right. This is just throwing gambling Twitter for NASCAR into a tizzy. The way that I've seen people talk about it, it's like 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. Denny Hamlin on his podcast, I don't know if you listened to him this past week. At the
Yeah, so
end
I,
of the
I didn't listen,
podcast,
but I read his quote. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, because it was funny because he was like, the guys who were good last week are going to be good, for the next week, and we've got some catch up to do. And then they were like, wait a second, there's a new rules package, and he's like, throw everything I just said out the window. It's going to be, a sim race, and some teams are going to be on it, and some it's going to be a huge discrepancy.
Yep.
That I think put some fear into people's eyes. And then on Twitter, we saw some of the some random people like in the industry and the crew side of things saying, no, like this is going to be pretty much, use the information that you have at your disposal. It's not going to, you're overthinking it. So I'm kind of in the middle, but before I keep ranting, I want to see like, where do you fall? Like, are you,
I completely
holding
agree
back
with
a little
everything
bit?
you're saying. Yeah, I
What's that?
completely agree about being in the middle because we just don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that says like, oh, well, maybe if the cars are harder to drive, you have to have those elite. The thing is, it's a mile track too, so it's not like a true short track. But you might need the guys who can whip it a little bit. If the car's harder to handle, like the Kyles come to mind who can drive anything, or um, like Priest showed what he did on a short track earlier this year. But again, it's not necessarily like that. But what if the car's harder to drive and you're kind of, not really drifting around a flat track, but I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it is very different. The fact is, we don't know. So, like, and I'm sure we'll get to it. But for betting, I'm only interested in what I would call long shots right now, even though the books don't offer crazy long shots anymore. But whatever's the best value I could find early. It's only been a couple, and then I want to wait. We have the long practice on Friday. That's going to be awesome. And one thing that I've noticed, this was true at the Clash, and this was true at Vegas because it was rained out at Auto Club. But the best 10-lap averages won both races. So let's just see what happens at practice. I know one auto bet I'll have, and that's who leads in the 10-lap average. So, we'll see if that trend continues. But it's surely been true so far. So Truex was a rocket at the Clash, and Byron was last week. So, those are
Makes a
my
lot of
thoughts.
sense.
We don't know anything.
So first of all, love that. I'm a huge fan of trends and patterns and auto bet, as you called it. That I'm in. I'm locked in. Whatever comes out after practice,
Yeah, I mean,
take my
you
money.
can't feel bad about it. You're betting on
No.
it'll be a super fast car, so you'll be like, okay, well, just do that one and don't think twice about it, and then work from there.
So I want to we are going to talk about like drivers and picks, kind of like putting the new rules package aside, like kind of suspending that thought process as we talk about some of the drivers and the bets here that we could throw down or we could discuss. We will do that, but I want to overreact for a second and just get your opinion on things, because I think one could really dive deep into this. Like they're saying 30% less downforce. The car is going to be, tougher to drive. It's going to be squirrely. Logano called it racy. So my mind, if I want to overreact, could go to the guys who love driving more out of control, like call them dirt track guys, whatever, the Larsons, the Briscoes,
Yeah,
the same guys we're going to be talking about at Bristol Dirt, Christopher Bell, those types of guys are going to like this. Then you say to yourself, well, maybe there's an edge because the car will be tougher to drive. So that in turn will generate more cautions, maybe. And then you're looking at, well, who's good on the short run? And, how do we figure that out? Is that even worth like any time to try to dive into? Or do you think it's just like,
well, the
let's
good
not
news
overreact?
about that, I mean, like the people that you're naming have already won here without this package. Larson has
Yeah.
won here. Briscoe has won here. Like we're just naming guys who have won. So yeah, you don't need to do that. Like that's the thing is like I think it could just be an overreaction saying like, oh well, we're gonna need these dirt guys that can whip it here, but it's like they already do. So it's like we
Mhm.
gave Larson had the fastest car here a couple of years ago, just blew everyone out and won. Like it's just what they do when they're good. I think we'll see. Well, the other, I guess I don't think this. I don't know. We saw a lot of tire wear here last year. I would imagine if the cars are harder to handle, we'd see a lot of tire wear or just,
Yeah.
them losing grip. So, I think again, if we were going to cap this in the same package that they always race in, we would be looking at guys who are good at tire wear. But that's the same as that's Harvick, Logano. It's all the guys who have been good here anyway. So it's like, I think at the end of the day, even when we break it down with this new package, we're going to end up with pretty much the same player pool. The fact that I threw a couple longer shots out there is that like, one, I think these guys are good here anyways. They're not necessarily winners, but what if this package is very different, like you said, and breaks some carnage, then maybe they could be winners. So just, minimal, not even half a unit between the two of them, but just see what happens.
Yeah. I think one of the names, I mean, we don't have to go all in talking about different guys just yet, but one of the names that stands out that I guess we both had talked about, Briscoe. All right. He's been trash this year. So the question that's like, you could stay up at night thinking about it is, will he perform good at this track anyway? Because he was really good here last year in both races. Or is it going to be more of the same what we've seen this year because he's just off this year? Or the third option, this new package is going to mean that he's, it's squirrely. He likes to drive those types of cars. So it's because of that he will then kind of get back into things. And it's like a little bit of home cooking at a track that he was good at last year. He's an enigma to me. Like, I don't know how to handle Briscoe, but the books have him higher up than they have, for a guy who has completely sucked. The books have reacted looking off of like last year's data. And so that makes it to me like, shit, like I don't know if I can touch him. Like, so do you have any thoughts on Briscoe?
Yeah, he's one. I like Stuart Haas this week, only because they've raced here. Like, you look at a guy like Harvick. How many different packages and cars has he been through, and has always been solid here as a part of Stuart Haas? It's just same thing with Almirola. Almirola's been really good here. He's been with Stuart Haas for, I think, longer than people realize. And I will just so we have a second. I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up on my computer as we speak. But he's been the last 10 races at Phoenix. Almirola's been there. We've seen different packages, different aero, different horsepower, and he's solid. Every year. Same can be said for Harvick, and then we saw it with Briscoe last year. So I don't know. And we know this is kind of Briscoe's forte. If you take the true performance for the short flat tracks last year as a whole, I think we had 7 in the sample size, and he had a true performance inside the top 10 in 7 of those races. So, that's just someone I think can, or in 6 out of 7, sorry. Mm-hmm. But he's obviously solid. This is kind of his jam. I don't really, again, like, it's going back to it. You can change the package. Some people are just good on this track type, regardless of what you're setting them in.
I think this is a big, even if somebody's listening to this and they don't bet Briscoe, it's still worth kind of following his day, because to me, this is a show me race for Chase Briscoe, like for the rest of the year. Like, as we get into some of these other tracks that he had been good at last year, like you said, his true performance last year on these tracks were legitimate. If he sucks, then to me, alarm bells go off. Like, something's going on with this team. So even if you don't bet it, it's still worth following his day, because, you can gain something from it as we get to some of these other tracks. But Phoenix, kind of shifting gears to talk about Phoenix as a whole, is the one question that comes to mind. Do you look at the fact that the championship race has been there the last few years any differently? Like, do you exclude those races, or is it just like, no, they're included and we're not going to treat them any differently? Because I feel like last year it was
even when I think people might let others get out front and lead. Like, I think 2 years ago comes to mind when, Blaney and Harvick clearly had the best 2 cars, and it was like they were told, just, guys, please slow down and let the leaders let the championship guys go by you. It's like, if you were to rate that race in any way, their green flag speed is going to be good. Their average running position is going to be good. It doesn't really deter it in any way. They still showed out. They were fast. They led laps. So no, I don't necessarily throw it out. I like to see that they can run here. For a lot of these guys too, it is the last race of the year. They're trying to show out and, get a top 10 or something like that. I know some of the vets might mail it in. But that's because those guys aren't going to be relevant anyway. So I don't really care about their numbers when we're looking forward. So if that makes sense.
Makes sense. So yeah, just include it and forget about it.
I did misspeak about Briscoe too. I just want to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I misspoke about his TPR on the short flat tracks. He had 6 inside the top 20, which isn't horrible. But one thing I noticed, and because a lot of these had a lot of tire wear, he had let's see here, he was top 10 in average finish. So he was 8th in average finish on that track type. So he is always up there, but he's not necessarily dominant on this track type. But I think again, it's just his forte. If you look at his true performance on short flats compared to intermediates, it's quite the difference. So again, that goes back to our Stuart Haas thing. I think Stuart Haas is set up well here.
Well, I don't want to. Your site, I have your site up right now, Briscoe. You were, from what I can tell, correct when you said 6 out of the 7 races.
Yeah, it's missing a column there. I just realized that. So
gotcha.
Yeah, so I have to update that. So I went to this. I can't share my screen on here, can I? It's one over. So that should be a T20. He was 6 inside there. Top 10 true performance. He was 2. So I'm going to edit that right when we get off of here.
No, okay, I'm with you.
Good thing we're looking at it. The numbers are still correct. His average finish, his average TPR, all that's the same. I just am missing the TPR,
column's just not there, but it's still populating the rest of the numbers. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess drivers to watch. We touched on a couple guys, and we'll kind of lead into. Actually, no. Before we do that, one last question about Phoenix in general. Is there any metric? And I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. Anything that you look at specifically, like when we go to Phoenix, you could take this any different direction you want. Anything that you're looking at to say, like, yes, this is a stat that matters to me when we go to this type of track or Phoenix specifically, that helps you kind of move or build your card out, as a foundation. The answer could be no.
Sound like a super homer, but it's going to be the true performance ranks. So I've used these for years, and I really believe in them and trust in them and have been successful for years using them. So they've only gotten more perfected. I barely tweaked it this year, but I did tweak it a little bit for 2023, and I'm even happier with the results. So yeah, I'll look at these 2022 true performance ranks, and that really guide me in the right direction.
All right. Sounds good. Another good reason to sign up for WinTheRace.info. Anybody listening? So let's talk picks. I want to let's start with a guy that I keep, he keeps popping up in conversation, Eric Almirola. He is someone that showed up on my notes as I started, sifting through the data, and said to myself, I got to figure out a way to throw something on Almirola. The bets that I had found so far, now I have not thrown anything on him, but a top 10 at Caesars, he's plus 160. Now Barstool is out now. I didn't see what he is on Barstool, but typically they're better odds. On Caesars to win the group against Preece, Keselowski, and Suarez, he's plus 260. And then head to head versus Ryan Preece, he's plus 100 on Betfred. So I find myself drawn to Almirola. I really like that head-to-head matchup. I know Preece, you had mentioned he's good at the Clash this year, but I haven't seen much from him since then. And if Stuart Haas Racing as a whole is on it, then they're both going to benefit from that. And Almirola just has the history here. So what is something, you had mentioned you wanted to be mad at him from the accident at the end of the last race. Where does he have you looking right now?
I put a little 0.2 unit sprinkle on a 65-1 to win the race. So,
okay.
I don't know, man. It's more like I don't want to. This is kind of when I think of Almirola, I think a short flat track is kind of his jam. Like he's more competitive in these races than he is other places in my eyes. And over the last 10 races here for him, half of them have been top 10 finishes, so he's around there. So I think my thinking is like, all right, well, what if it's a little crazier in this package than we think, and he's running top 10, and some shit goes down, and maybe you get a late restart, and he's up near the top, and can just hold guys off in an overtime situation or something like that. He's had one good pit stop week and one bad pit stop week. Maybe he gets lucky at the end. I thought 65-1 for someone in my pre-practice and qualifying ranks, I have ranked 12th. I just thought that was far too long at 65-1, and especially with how I think Stuart Haas Racing can come in here. And we saw, again, this is nothing like the Clash. But when you had to set a car up, and again, it's a new setup, so it's a little different. But for a short track, I mean, they came in super fast. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought 65-1 was too far.
I agree. I mean, that's a number that, especially when you talk about your pre-ranks, that doesn't compute. Like there's a big gap there. There's a delta there, and yeah, it's got shades of New Hampshire a couple years ago all over it, right? I think he was at a similar number when he hit on that win. So
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not something that he hasn't done before. It's not, obviously it's not expected, but that's why it's 65-1. So, and if you don't mind, I can just say my other one right now because he's right
yeah,
next to him in my ranks too. And you mentioned him in the head-to-head, so it's worth talking about. But it's Ryan Preece.
okay,
So I missed out on Preece 60-1 because I was waiting for more books to come out with numbers. He's down to 50 everywhere, so I took him at 50 everywhere I can in New York, at least, which is typically DraftKings, FanDuel, PointsBet, MGM, Caesars, and
okay.
Bet Rivers. So
That's a
there's like
good
6 main books I
clip.
can look at. Probably more, but I don't know. I'm not going overseas, so
Yeah,
I took him 50-1. I don't know, and this is more like, to me, this is his forte. And even when he was with JTG, in just a much, I know he hasn't been fast on these intermediate tracks, but we saw the speed. He's blowing by guys no one ever thought he could at the Clash. Like this Stewart-Haas car can be set up to win. He blew by everybody and was leading every lap in that race until he had a malfunction in the car. So even with JTG, I mean, he has top 20 finishes here in that car at Phoenix. So I just think it's somewhere he can race well at, given the proper equipment. And I think it's somewhere, this is another thing I took in consideration with him. Like Custer could qualify really fast in this car some places last year. And if Priest can whip it a little better, I think he could qualify well here too. So I just like the track position. I like Stewart-Haas here. So instead of taking Harvick and Briscoe, who I also like here, I'll go with their teammates. And maybe it's a little crazier of a race. We don't know. But I'm in for a total of 0.45 units on it to return a minimum of 10, or I think 11, the way I have it set up. 11, I think it's 11 units. So why not?
yeah.
Just
Why
take
not?
it and see what happens. For less than half a unit on 2 flyers, I would have kicked myself so hard if I didn't do this. So I wanted to get him in there.
I love it. It's like an insurance play, and you've convinced me of doing a similar situation, and also inadvertently kind of talked me off the Almirola over Priest head to head. Like I was getting ready to just smash that,
Yeah.
but you built up a decent case for Priest here that maybe I'll hold off on that. So appreciate you if especially if Priest goes out and he performs well, because I wasn't really giving Priest the time of day, was kind of dismissing the Clash a little bit, but you make a good case for him.
Yeah,
So
and again, like I don't want people listening to this and be like, "Oh, this guy's crazy." He's like, think it's going to be like the Clash. Like that's not what I think. I just think like when a race car driver can set up his car for something that's more of his down, like right up his alley, and give notes to the team, and they all work together. Like obviously, Stewart-Haas knows something here, and even if it's on a new race car, I'm sure they're smart enough to figure out how to make it similar enough to what they had to be fast here. So could be dead wrong, like I said, but for that little investment for such a big return, let's do it.
I like it. Another big bet that I think the sports books have actually paid attention to this year, it's the streak. Kevin Harvick. Uh, he is like further down the odds list to win the race. Another Stewart-Haas guy. This is like the Stewart-Haas podcast this week.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about him because last year he had this streak going on, and his top 10 number reflected kind of where he was to win the race. But this year they're paying attention because he's like right almost at the top of the top 10 board,
Yeah.
even though he's further down to win the race. So they're
Well, they got
listening.
murdered. They got murdered last year. Caesars got
Yeah,
absolutely torched on this last year.
100%. So here's the question. Whatever number you can get him at, I think Barstool's like minus 182. Caesars was like 200. Whatever book it is, it's gonna be not good to the gambler. Do you still go all in? Like, are you just like, this is like the sun rising in the east and setting in the west, or at that number, are you like, well, I'm holding off a little bit?
Well, what are they? So I think he's minus 200 right now on Caesars for a top 10. So, I mean, that's pretty tough. That's almost 70% of the time you'd expect a top 10. I mean, he does it, but now you have like this added question of, well, what if this package is way different and they just swing and miss? I don't know. I probably just wouldn't take it. I think it's, you got to view this week like, we'll obviously see practice. So, hey, maybe Harvick's the guy with the fastest 10 lap and we just bet him to win anyway. So, I don't know. I don't think I'd take the minus 200 for a top 10, even though some top 10 numbers now like have been minus 700, minus 600, some of these places. So
Yeah.
minus 200 is not the worst, but I still I don't think you need to do it.
Okay. Yeah. I was a little disappointed that they were actually on their game. That's for sure. But glass half full. They're paying attention, so maybe we'll see some new stuff down the road.
I might be able to talk myself into it. We'll see. We'll see how the week goes. I mean, it's compared to what they have been. And like last year, it was minus 110 or minus 120. That's not far off, and we were smashing that number. So we'll see. Let me have a little bit more of this whiskey. We could convince me.
That's right. I mean, what I can see myself doing is taking it and parlaying it with something else in sports, whether it's a Xfinity bet or something else like Sixers Saturday night, whatever. Because if you consider it a lock, just trying to do something to get the odds more in your favor. That I could see myself now doing that. So
I like that thought. That is great.
Yeah. It worked for me last week. And I don't know if you pay attention to F1 at all, but I parlayed Verstappen win with like a bunch of stuff and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. I like that because he's always like minus 175 or whatever to win. So,
yeah. So let's talk about another team, just anybody else other than Stuart Haas.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that's I was leading in that direction. Here's somebody that, you tell me about Austin Dillon, because I feel like at other short flats, he's usually a pretty good play, but in the past, Phoenix has just not been good to him. But then you look at last year's spring race, he was like up there, and then kind of something happened on like the very last lap. He was cruising for a top 10, and then something happened to him, if I remember correctly. Austin Dillon, like, do you look at how he is? I think like Richmond, he's typically pretty good, which is a comp track. Or do you just like stay away from somebody like this? And I'm talking more, I'm not as versed in DFS stuff, but like I would imagine that he's like further down the list as far as like price wise. So like, is he somebody that you say, well, some of these other tracks he's okay at, maybe I'll add him to my lineup, or is he just like a,
to me,
black cloud?
Yeah, to me, he's like a super speedway bet only. Unless he was at like a super ridiculous number here. He's like 100 to 1 or something like that. I might look at it, but at that point, you're probably just looking for top 10 numbers on him if he's that long, anyways. I don't know. Like, I just can't see him leading the field ever. Like, I couldn't see it about Priest until he did it. And I know, again, that's at the Clash, but still, like, at least I got to see it, know that he could pass everybody and lead everyone. Austin Dillon, I just can't see doing that. Like, every time he gets out front anywhere, it tends to be pretty lucky. Even when he's fast, he can't catch the leader. It's just not someone I'm too into here, especially with how absolutely lost that team was last week. And again, it's a completely new package here, but very, very disappointing way to show up to the track after having two great cars the week before. So I don't know what's going on with them.
So we don't have to call this an official pick of yours, but I asked you about Dillon so that I could hit you with a top 10, or excuse me, a head-to-head matchup. He's going up against the other Austin Cindric on Caesars. And to me, that got my attention because I was like, well, Cindric, kind of the opposite of what you just said last week. Like, he kind of came out of nowhere, had a decent finish. And, His team is historically good here. So head to head versus Dylan, for that reason, I don't know, worth a sprinkle or a look.
What's the number on that there?
They were even odds, minus 115, I believe, earlier when I wrote this down.
I'm probably gonna. I feel like Cindric too is someone who always finds a way to disappoint me. So maybe that's a personal thing, but
So we're avoiding Austin's.
I think Austin Cindric in his Cup career much better qualifier than racer. So
Interesting.
I mean, like look at his qualifying last year compared to his results; they're just shit. So like I just think he's you throw him on there and just say, hey, run your line and we'll give you a fast Penske car. Okay, no one else is out there. He can run a fast lap, but throw him in a race and he's just not succeeding. So I think he's had, I mean, I don't know, this is another topic, but he had a pretty disappointing start to his Cup career being in a Penske car. I mean, I think so. He started out winning Daytona. That's freaking awesome. But then since then, I mean, I think he's been a pretty big disappointment.
Yeah, I would say that he has the fact that the schedule is now so heavy on road courses. I feel like when we go to road courses, he's always in play. Like he did really well on road courses last year, which was expected. So like he's there and could always jump up and like he could win 2 races just because of the fact that road courses are on the schedule
Yeah.
like 6 times.
Well, yeah, and he's good at
Um,
super speedways too. Now we have what? I guess technically 6.
6 if we
Yeah.
if we consider Atlanta. That's a debate for next week.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so like, but as far as being a disappointment, it's tough because apples to apples against Brad's last year in that car, Brad sucked. So like I don't know if that team just kind of like took a nosedive or what.
Yeah.
The 2 car kind of turned into the 3rd car when it was
Yeah.
the primary car. So it's a good question. I'll be. That's another
Yeah,
one
that's what I
like
mean.
I really
It's
want
like a
to
whole
wait
other
on.
topic, you know.
Yeah,
You could debate both sides, I'm sure, but I just thought, but like you said, a lot of teams have that extra car. Like, you see it with Stuart Haas on these intermediate tracks. You have 2 fast ones and 2 slow ones, or something like that. So it's like Penske's got 2 fast ones, 1 dud.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be. He's another guy. Like last year, I was really watching Keselowski versus Cindric just to see like not that there was a direct comparison, but to see the success of each, and they really kind of both let me down. Aside from the 500 win.
Yeah.
So I want to I want to try to find some value here for people out there early in the week and looking at your pre-ranks. I want to get your opinion. Is this how I use the site? So we have a matchup that is even odds, Bowman versus Briscoe on Caesars, and your site has Briscoe ranked quite high, 8th, and Bowman further down, 15th, which I was
Yep.
a little surprised to see. So is that an opportunity for us to hit the smash button?
Yeah, I think I definitely like Briscoe more than Bowman here. Stands true too if you look at just even the true performance ranks from last year. Briscoe much better average finish, 10.43 compared to Bowman's over 20, and then just the actual true performance too. Briscoe at a 12.14 average true performance, and Bowman at a 17.33. So it it just stinks. This happens to be the one chart that I have missing the T10 and T20s in the right spot, but that is just looking at these numbers that are correct. The average TPR and the average finish, I would take Briscoe over Bowman all day. And again, like not really concerned about the package here. I would expect Briscoe to show up correct.
I mean, and that's a matchup where even if the package does impact them, we kind of identified like he's somebody that may like this. So, um, yeah,
Yeah,
some
looking
of
at
the
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just saying, like
yeah.
last year's qualifying too. Briscoe qualified 6th and 3rd at Phoenix.
So and that's something else to watch for because if he's off there, like he's clearly proven he has the ability. If he's got a fast car, he's going to be in the top 10 qualifying. if he's way off there, then maybe that's giving you pause to really go all in on
Yeah,
this
like that's
data.
when you can say, "Wow, this must be different than last year." So
Exactly.
he
Yeah.
was very consistent at this track type and qualifying, like I said. So look at overall qualifying on the short flats. Briscoe's what, 7th? So yeah, he's up there. He made the final round in 4 out of the 7 races. With 2 being Phoenix. So
I like it. I have a bet here that I liked. It was, I don't remember the group letter, but it's on Caesars. I was interested in Ty Gibbs plus 275. He's got to beat 3 guys. Josh Berry,
yeah,
who, I'm kind of like on him right now. Austin Dillon, who we touched on, and then Eric Jones, who in your pre-qualifying ranks is actually below Ty right now. Anyway, so we touch on Austin, kind of not really trusting him. He's much further up in those rankings, but we're getting a decent value there at plus 275 for Ty. Is that something you would entertain?
oh, probably not. Austin Dillon would be the one I'd worry about there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the
Um,
favorite if I pull up Caesars.
and Ty just, super underperforming. And so far this year, that car has been surprisingly slow. That's the part I don't get. Like, you switch from the 18 to the 54. I thought granddad would have hooked you up a little bit better than he's doing. It's just
Yeah.
like it's just a slow car. I think earlier too, like you saw, like Nick Giffin's a good, Twitter friend of mine. And he posts his flags rankings, which is like he takes out all the incident. It's like incident adjusted speed for the most part. But he posted the full list earlier. Just trying to look to see where he did it, but I could not even believe where he was in this car. Just give me 1 sec. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
And while you're
So
pulling that up, I can tell you he's like just in this group. The reason that caught my attention here for Ty was the fact that he was clearly the underdog in this matchup. But on some of these, stats, he kind of goes toe to toe. But Dylan is obviously the favorite in this matchup at plus 200.
yeah, so it was Dylan Jones, and then who was the fourth in that?
Josh Berry, who's like, what are we going to say about him?
Yeah, so I won't even count that. But just off like raw speed this year, Gibbs has been slower than Dylan and Jones, which is crazy in a JGR car. That
Is
is
crazy.
absolutely crazy.
Wow. All right. So maybe some pause there as well. Yeah. I mean, that's
I'd probably
shocking.
say that's a good one. That'd be one where I'd be looking like for Austin Dillon. Just because I don't hate him here, like we were saying, like maybe you look for a top 10 number if his number was very long, but in that group, I kind of don't mind Austin Dillon right there.
Yeah. I mean, just off of the, he's 14th in the ranks here, and Ty is the next best at 22. And then you got Jones behind him, and then Barry, further down. Like, so if we do trust Austin a little bit, maybe this would be the group at plus 200. Which when I first brought it up, I wrote down 275 for Gibbs. I thought that Dylan was like plus 150 in that group, but plus 200 is a little bit better than that. So
Yeah, plus
could be
200.
interesting.
I think I like Dylan's upside more. Like if Dylan's flirting with a top 10, I'm not as surprised than if Ty Gibbs is up there flirting with a top 10.
Yeah, makes sense. Last question about a driver. And it's Austin's teammate, Kyle Busch. He has laid down just a ton of great data, great finishes over his career at Phoenix. If you're looking at like the last 10, you're looking at the last 6 races last year on the short tracks, whatever the numbers, Kyle in the Toyota last year and years past has been solid, like somebody that you kind of want to keep your eye on as the bets are going to unfold this weekend. Now off to a phenomenal start this season at Phoenix. Last year, Ford kind of dominated that. So if there's anybody that can do it, from Chevy, like, do you think that Kyle on this track now for the first time, not in a Toyota, is going to lose a step in any way, or is he going to keep this momentum going from this 2023 season?
No, I think I like Kyle Busch this week. He's one, like when I said the Kyles earlier, like if this car is harder to drive, I trust these guys who can go. They've raced almost anything imaginable. They're just drivers. Like they're the wheelmen that I want to look for. So both Kyles are good with me. Kyle Busch, especially, they come with a fast car. Again, I hate to keep mentioning the Clash, but it's like the only thing short that they've raced so far. But they came with blazing speed to that track as well. Perhaps last week was just an off week, and to show his skill, look at both RCR cars last week, two flaming piles of shit, and he was able to flirt with a top 10 throughout the day, where Austin Dillon was 2 laps down before the race even started. So just a big skill gap there. So if they give him a fast car on this track, I'm confident that he'll be able to figure it out and be running up top. So I like Kyle Busch a lot.
Yeah, he's somebody. So the part of this podcast before bringing you on, I called out just a few guys that I liked to potentially win, not really considering the odds. He's a favorite, plus 800. Not sure where he'll fall on race day or whatever, but he, for those reasons and more, Kyle stood out to me. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have any other like drivers that were worth calling out before I bring up a new topic for you or a new stat?
No, that's good. One thing that did surprise me is I did kind of pump in barely the Clash into these ranks. And it was like just enough to get Martin Truex up to the top. Which I see there too. I got Auto Club pre-Q on here. I was like, my head was in the clouds today with this wake we had to go to and everything. So I gotta do some buttoning up on the site here when we hang up from this. But Martin Truex Jr. got brought up to the top here. He's someone that I like him at Phoenix anyways, and I feel like they could come out here with a fast car, fast Toyota, and I think him and Hamlin could surprise some people. So I guess that's the only other thing I'll say.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how Toyota does this weekend. Like I've been listening to Denny Hamlin's podcast every week. I find the fact that he records like right after the race super interesting because you get that like raw take on things. And he's been straight up saying like, we're behind, like we need to, step it up. So now going to a different style track, I'm anxious to see how Toyota, brings it.
It's so weird too, because like why could they come to the Clash? It's not like teams were trying to lose this race. Like, why would you come to the Clash and they had the 2 fastest cars in the race? It's like him and Hamlin and Truex. It's like, so like what the hell happened? Like where I don't get it.
It's definitely though worth taking pause over the fact that Truex tops the rankings here for you. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to pull Caesars back up where they have him at as far as winning the race, but it's not in the top 10. So he's 10-1 right now to win the race on Caesars.
Yeah.
I don't know compared to other books if that's good or bad. Just giving you the barometer here, 10-1, and there's a lot of other drivers ahead of him. So maybe that's
I was hoping
play.
if somehow he got to like 15 to 18, I was probably going to hit it, but I don't think I can take 10 because my thing about taking like 10 or lower is that even with practice and qualifying, what's he going to go down to? 8? Like even if he was fast, he's still not going to be ahead. If some of these bigger names are fast, he's not going to be ahead of them. So like, I think maybe you get him at 8 or 9 anyways. So I'm probably just going to wait on it and we'll see. And we'll keep this in the back of our mind. And then our other nugget about 10 lap practice and bet that guy. So
yeah.
Let's
Sounds
hear
good.
your new stat. I told you I'm pumped to hear this new stat you got.
So, and I told Ryan before we started recording, I said, if this is dumb, just laugh me off the podcast here. But I brought this up on the pod last year and, didn't really get any response like one way or the other. No one really saying like that's dumb or that's bad, or that's good. And this could be something that you are already doing in part of like True Performance Ranks or whatever. But I think I have something to give you a visual on. But the what I was trying to solve for was like the stats that I usually like every week I pull up average driver rating on certain tracks, and an average finish, and like those two stats, right? So average finish tells a story, and driver rating tells another part of the story. Like driver rating, I always equate it to like a QBR. The quarterback could go out and have a monster day statistically, but they don't get the win.
Right.
And so I'm trying to account for those two things, like trying to blend the story together. So I have this thing that I created called draft. It's my draft stat. So it's driver rating minus average finish. And trying to show, if I can pull this up for anyone watching on YouTube and for Ryan to see. So this is an example. So Atlanta last year was an example where I didn't know, I couldn't make heads and tails of things. So I was pulling up stats for Atlanta. This was like the first race for Atlanta. I was pulling up Atlanta stats as well as a couple of the more recent races for Talladega and Daytona. And I averaged out, for however many races I was doing, I averaged out their average finish, and then I averaged out their driver ratings, and then I had their driver rating, and then the goal was obviously to have the highest number. So you start with the driver rating, you subtract average finish, and you get your draft. So it's taking the whole picture, or what I would consider the whole picture, into play. So if they lucked their way into a good finish a bunch of times, and they had really a shitty race, the driver rating kind of offsets that, and vice versa. They have a good, Ryan Blaney is a good example, and he's the top of the board here of someone who typically has had a good amount of races but hasn't maybe gotten the finishes. So what are your thoughts on my draft stat? Is this worth my time? I use this a few times on road courses as well. Kind of
What track
personally.
am I looking at here?
This is Atlanta. So this is to prep for Atlanta last year. We didn't see Atlanta yet, and I was pulling up like the last 2 or 3 Atlanta races, like so their average driver rating and average finish, and then the last 2 or 3 from Daytona and Talladega, and putting them all together in a stat. So that's what this was.
So I
Red
like
light,
it,
green
but
light.
say
Give me
you
a
did it.
stoplight rating.
Say you did it like for Phoenix this week.
Okay.
So the only thing you'd have to do, well, one of the things you'd have to do, you'd have to take out incidents. So you can't just take like if you go to like driver averages, you can't just take that, because like say Larson had say you're like a four race sample size with Hendricks and 1 wrecked, which I think might even be true. You can't take that. I would not take the wreck. I would take his 4 clean races, or his 3 clean races out of the 4, and just use the 3 to give you more of a true idea. I would take everyone's, they're the DNF out, and then do it that way. And also with their current team. So like for Suarez, you got to take out all the Gaunt Brothers stuff. Just use his track house. Even if it's only a small sample size, it's still more relevant to how they're going to race compared to what their averages are pulling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So like when I do my pre-Q ranks, that's part of the process that I do, and I'm doing like track form, which goes into it, is I'll take out incidents. I'll use only teams that they're current with, and some of them you have to fudge because they haven't been with the team, so you have to kind of come up with your own ranking. Like if you're doing it for Gragson or guys like that. But yeah, you're onto something. The average finish can get a little squirrely, but I don't mind. Actually, the only time I do pre-Q ranks and use average finish is when I do super speedways. So it's funny that you have Atlanta up now, because I use Atlanta, Dega, and Daytona. So for this particular model, I like it. And I actually like it. I wouldn't do what I'm saying with the incidents for super speedways. So for Atlanta, I like it if you did it this year, but I would take out the old Atlantas and just use super speedways and the new Atlanta.
Just what we saw last year. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You're onto something. This is like, it's like the beginning of your own true performance ranks.
And if you like it, you can have it. that actually fits the brand of the stat, because if I just use it for super speedways, I can call it the draft stat.
Yeah, there you go.
Draft. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, for super speedways, I really love it. Average finish gets a little squirrely with me on some other tracks, but it would probably be better. This would be harder to do and a lot more work, but your average finish would also change if you took out those incidents and stuff like that too. So then it would become more accurate of their clean races. So that would be my only objection here, is that there might be a lot of dirty races in there, or races with shitty teams that they're no longer with.
Yeah, that one is a big one. You kind of have to, that sort of requires you to have a little bit of summer reading done, as you're looking at this.
It'll take a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. Well, you didn't
like
shoot it down completely. So
I always love seeing new things like this. It's just innovative and trying to find a new way to rank it out. I love that stuff, man.
Cool. Well, I'm pumped. I didn't get laughed off the pod, so that's
no, I love it. I'd stick with it, and it's really just going to depend on how much time you have in your life for how deep you want to go on that thing.
you could really go all in.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
anything, which is why I respect people like yourself and everybody else out there that does put the time in to allow people like me and everybody else in the NASCAR gambling community to take advantage of the work that you're putting in. So definitely appreciate it. So anything else to add? I've taken up your time for over an hour here. I just blinked and it's an hour. So
no, that's fine, man. I'm a long podcaster. I extend all these shows, so I'm sorry to make your show long.
No, this is great.
I just enjoy talking racing, and I just it's hard to say anything more about Phoenix, like you said, until we see practice. I would tell everyone, if you can't watch practice, I would try to tape it. It's important to tune in and hear what the drivers are saying and the teams are saying, and to just watch the run, see if the cars look like they're driving any different and how they react to it, and on Win the Race too, in Discord, and I can start pumping it on the site as well, but posting the practice time so everyone can see it is very important. So just pay attention to practice, qualifying. One thing I do in my DraftKings projections every week is I do a weekend speed rating, which kind of takes all that into account, practice and qualifying. So it's nice to see who I expect to be fast. So
love that.
Yeah. Byron and Larson were, obvious choices last week, but
yeah, exciting.
Well, yeah, man, it's going to be an awesome week, though. I know it should be a fun race.
Yeah, I think I love the fact that we have this like cloud of the new rules package, because like it's got this like mystery about it, and it's going to make it really fun to watch. So, for gamblers, it's going to be a full weekend with practice, qualifying, and the race to really follow with a magnifying glass. So
yeah,
definitely excited. Well, Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on. Hope to have you again as the season unfolds. So I'll be in your ear about that later down the road. Good luck with the WinTheRace.info site.
Thank you.
Good luck in the one and done competition we're in together, and your bets this weekend.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on and plugging the site, and yeah, I love the one and done. What a cool thing to come up with a strategy for. So yeah, it'll be fun all year.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, and we'll catch you down the road.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it.